CBD, short for cannabidiol, is a non-psychoactive compound in cannabis responsible for many of cannabis's medical benefits. On the other hand, THC, short for tetrahydrocannabinol, is the psychoactive compound in marijuana that causes the high associated with cannabis use. They are two completely separate cannabinoids, which are a class of chemical compounds that interact with special receptors in our body called cannabinoid receptors. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, an American neurosurgeon and CNN's chief medical correspondent, changed his stance on the prohibition of cannabis while investigating its powerful therapeutic properties and witnessing CBD successfully treat Americans. He shocked mainstream America, saying, "We have been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years in the United States, and I apologize for my role in that." Through Dr. Gupta's review of the history of cannabis, he found that it has been a legitimate medicine for at least 3,000 years. And Dr. Gupta isn't alone in supporting cannabis research. The director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, Dr. Nora Volkov, testified before the Senate saying that CBD appears to be a safe drug with no addictive effects, and the preliminary data suggests that it may have therapeutic value for a number of medical conditions. Research has shown that CBD can influence many conditions and bodily functions, including inflammation, neuropathic pain, autoimmune disease, energy regulation, metabolism, reproductive function, appetite, depression, anxiety, and even cancer. But how can one cannabinoid affect so many bodily processes without causing adverse side effects? The answer lies in our biochemistry, the natural intelligence of the body. We have naturally occurring cannabinoid receptors all over our body that interact with CBD. We have these receptors because our body is constantly making its own cannabinoids. These receptors and cannabinoids make up most of our endocannabinoid system, or ECS. Our ECS is always in action, and if functioning properly, is a major factor in keeping us healthy. Many doctors now think that some people suffer from an endocannabinoid imbalance, known as clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, or CED. People suffering from CED may benefit by supplementing with cannabinoids such as CBD. CBD is the most abundant cannabinoid in hemp, a cannabis crop the federal government allowed individual states to legalize in the 2014 Farm Bill. Hemp-derived CBD is legal in all 50 states, is non-addictive, does not cause a high, and is easy to incorporate into your current health routine.
What is it about hemp that's so controversial? Why is it always in the news lately? And is it only because it's tied to medical marijuana? Can it be good? I'll leave the legal discussion to the lawyers. What I'm interested in are potential health benefits. You know, hemp, cannabis, that plant that can be legally grown all over the world and is often used in marijuana production. With all this news, I decided to do a little digging and to try to figure out why hemp is so controversial. I mean, hard liquor is legal and it has no redeeming health qualities whatsoever. So does hemp have any redeeming qualities? We'll find out. With us is the author of Cancer, Step Outside the Box, Ty Bollinger. Hi, Ty. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Carol.
One of the really incredible things I was reading about in your book was hemp.
Yeah.
Marijuana, basically.
Right.
Tell us the history of hemp, because I found this quite unusual.
Well, hemp has the reputation as being this evil weed. But the medicinal history of hemp is quite fascinating. Back as far back as the 1930s, there were medicinal hemp tinctures in almost every pharmacy in the United States.
Hang on, I want to go even further back.
Yeah.
didn't you write in your book that Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and all these presidents actually grew hemp, so it was legal to grow everywhere?
They did.
And they could use it as they wanted to use it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, some farmers in the colony of Virginia were required to grow hemp. And so it's such a good fiber, very good for making clothes, a lot of different industrial uses for hemp.
Ford thought it was strong enough to make a car out of it, and he did.
One
it was as strong as steel.
Yeah, one of the first Model Ts was actually made from hemp, and it ran on hemp fuel.
And then the enemy of hemp was William Randolph Hearst.
With paper. Well, yeah,
Explain
with newspapers. Well, hemp is a much more efficient way to make paper. In 1 acre of hemp, you can do 10 times the amount of paper than 1 acre of trees.
So why did he want it outlawed?
Because he owned thousands of acres of forest that when he owned paper.
So this is a political thing. It had really nothing to do with hemp itself.
Exactly. It really didn't. It was more about the money. It was more about eliminating the competition. And so that's why hemp was demonized and thought of as this evil weed. They put out propaganda films like Reefer Madness and so forth to make people afraid of hemp. When in reality, that's one small use of hemp, the recreational use, which is we call it marijuana. But that was a slang term that they developed to make people afraid of it.
Oh, heck, Mary Jane, doobies, everything. I mean,
Exactly.
they've got a lot of slang terms for it. So in the 1930s, they made tinctures. What were they making the tinctures for, and why were they doing these tinctures?
Well, I mean, the medicinal uses of hemp are just numerous. The hemp helps, well, we can talk about the cancer effects of hemp, but it helps with inflammation. It's very anti-inflammatory. It helps with seizures. It's very effective with PTSD for the vets that are coming back that have post-traumatic traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Very effective at treating that. It's an anti-inflammatory. But then the uses of hemp for cancer, what I've studied, because of my book, Cancer Step Outside the Box, and the number of cancers, there's about a dozen different cancers that have been studied in depth with medicinal marijuana, with hemp. And so the studies, from brain cancer to prostate cancer to pancreatic cancer, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer, it's amazing.
Okay, so what is in hemp that it's this THC, correct?
Well, there's chemicals that are called cannabinoids.
Right.
THC is short for delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol.
I'm glad you said it because I couldn't.
That's the only time I'll get it right. I'm glad I got it right. So that's the one, THC is the one cannabinoid that everyone's familiar with. That's the one that's psychoactive, and that's the one that gets you high if you smoke it.
Okay.
But there's other cannabinoids. One is called CBD, cannabidiol, and it's very medicinally used. There's no psychoactive component of CBD.
So what do? Extract these to make tinctures, or you can make tea out of?
You can make tea. You can eat it. It's a great superfood. You're into raw. A lot of people use raw hemp in their superfood.
Well, do you get high off of hemp if you eat it as a superfood?
No, well,
or just the seeds.
You've got to heat the THC to make it become psychoactive. So people that eat the plant, they put in a smoothie. You know, there's super green smoothies.
Right.
You're not going to get high off of that because you didn't superheat it.
But is it then, if you put it in the smoothie like that, is it a good prevention to cancer?
It is. It's very well. It's got a perfect ratio of omega-3 to 6 fatty acids. It's got more GLA, gamma-linolenic acid, than any other plant. So it's got some really great fats. You're well aware of the importance of good fats in your diet.
Yeah.
So hemp it's a perfect superfood to eat. But it's also medicinal.
I just never understood why hemp had gotten such a bad rap, and now I understand that it was really politically motivated by somebody who owned basically trees and didn't want to be in competition with the hemp to make paper. And yet, throughout the years after that, so many people suffered because of that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's actually a good thing that people are coming around a little bit.
It is. I'm really encouraged about the different legislation in different states that are trying to legalize medicinal hemp because of the fact that it is so good. It's not just a superfood. It's not just great for industrial uses, as we've mentioned, but it's a really good medicine.
Thank you so much for coming on, Ty. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it.
A couple of years ago, a remarkable thing happened when CBD became legal in all 50 of the U.S. states. If you remove CBD from the THC coming from the cannabis plant or the hemp plant, CBD is now legal to use as a nutritional supplement. Since that time, of course, the market has exploded with interest. And this conversation today is about the physiological effects of CBD on the human body. Truly, CBD is not just another nutritional supplement. This short conversation is going to accurately describe the intense scientific research that's going on around the world, but in simple language so that everyone understands of why CBD is so important for human physiology. In order to comprehend the significance of CBD to our health, we first have to ask the simple question, what exactly is our health? Is it just the absence of disease? If you don't have symptoms, you must be healthy? Well, it's actually a far more important question and a deeper question than just that. How does human physiology actually work? How is it designed? In general, every aspect of human physiology is based on the balance between polar opposites, between the yin and the yang. This creates homeostasis. When we look at specific parts of our physiology, like the immune system, the yin and the yang, the opposites would be anti-inflammation and inflammation, the negative and the positive. When those two things are in balance, your immune system is functioning properly. If we're talking about our nervous system, then we're talking about the forces of excitation and the forces of inhibition or relaxation. When we're talking about our endocrine system or our hormone system, we have the forces of breaking down tissue or the catabolic hormones, and we have the anabolic hormones which build up tissue. When those two forces are in balance, we have homeostasis of our endocrine or hormone system. If we're talking about oxidation, we have forces of antioxidation and forces of oxidation. Most people think that you have to just take buckets full of antioxidants all the time as if oxidation is bad. Not true. If you didn't have oxidation and the forces of oxidation in your bodies, you couldn't survive even 1 minute. Those two things have to be in balance. They have to be in homeostasis. All of our physiological systems have to be in this constant state of homeostasis, a dynamic balance. The stronger your physiology's ability to stay in homeostasis is, the more robust your capacity to be in homeostasis is, the healthier you are. Next question. What exactly is dynamic balance? This is kind of difficult to understand, and the best way is a model of a mobile. So here we go. We're looking at a mobile. You've probably played with this when you were a kid. Perhaps you even have some of these in your home right now. We have all of these horizontal elements with little strings hanging down from them, and we have these stars hanging at the bottom. In this particular model, the stars represent signaling molecules. If this is a model of your neurology, the stars that are hanging would be the neurotransmitters. If this was a mobile of your endocrine system, your hormone system, then the hanging stars would be hormones. And if this was your immune system, the hanging stars would be cytokines or lymphokines. These are the signaling molecules that make your immune system work. Now, what makes this a dynamic balance is, as you know, if you change anything in this mobile, it affects everything in this mobile. Let's say, for example, that the star down here at the bottom, that's now big and swollen and red, gets weighted down as if you took a paper clip or some weight and attached it to the mobile hanging in your home. That star is going to pull down and everything in the mobile is going to shift. You can't change any one element without affecting every element in a mobile. What's interesting, however, is that initially the mobile is going to go through these oscillations where things are bouncing up and down and shifting up and down until the oscillations slowly quiet and the mobile finds a new point of homeostasis, a new point of balance. Now everything is shifted in the mobile. The stars are all in different locations now, and many of the sticks are no longer horizontal. They're kind of twisted at one angle or another. But our physiologies are so smart that they will find a new point of balance. During the shifting and the oscillation is when you feel sick, when you have symptoms. But our body, our physiology will compensate, and the new balance will be found, and you can continue to function. Now let me explain how modern medicine with pharmaceutical drugs interacts with this system. Let's say you have another one of these stars, another one of these elements that goes a little bit haywire. This star over here on the left. So you're feeling lousy and you go to the doctor, and the doctor does some kind of test and decides, okay, we need to give you a drug. And so you take a drug, some kind of pharmaceutical drug, to deal with this one element over here on the left that's now gone somewhat haywire. And the drug is designed to clamp down on those symptoms. Notice that the drug is designed to deal with exactly that one star, not the entire system of the mobile, but that one star and the symptoms that it's creating. However, we know that pharmaceutical drugs have many, many unintended side effects. And so, because of the drug you're taking now, another star goes haywire, and you have more symptoms, and now you have to take a drug to counteract the symptoms from the first drug. And so you clamp down on that star as well. And then a third one goes haywire, and so you clamp down on that one as well. And let's say now you seem to be stable, you seem to be functioning, and everything is copacetic. Well, is it really? Everything seems to be stable here because the mobile isn't shifting anymore, but let's take a closer look at your system. This is what's actually happening. You now have all sorts of artificial weights attached to your physiology, to your mobile. You can see that your physiology is under a lot of stress. The weight of all these different drugs and these overexpressed stars are pulling down heavily on this mobile, and you can see that some of those bars are now bent because they're under so much tension. One more little thing going wrong with your physiology, perhaps it's something as simple as a cold or a little virus, or some kind of drug interaction that you didn't anticipate, and now something breaks. This system is under so much tension and so much stress that the oscillations would be huge, and you might find yourself in the ICU under life support. So, in a nutshell, pharmaceutical drugs work at the level of the symptoms, not the systems, which causes enormous strain on your human physiology. So I've showed you this in order to point out, to highlight the differences between how pharmaceutical drugs work at the level of the stars and how CBD works. CBD, instead of working at the level of the stars, works at the level of the system of balance, at the nexus of balance. That would be in these crystalline green orbs where the string attaches to the stick. That's where the system knows if it's in balance or out of balance. It can't tell what's happening at the level of the star, but it knows what's happening right there in that green crystalline orb where balance is maintained and established. So in the model that we are using, the mobile, to highlight how our physiology works, that's where CBD works. Now, in our actual physiology, where does CBD work? Let's take a closer look. Here we go. We're going to travel into our physiology, right into our central nervous system. And we're going to see at the level of individual cells that the cell surface is covered with these green receptors. These are receptors for CBD. And when the CBD binds to that receptor, it sends a message into the cell, which travels all the way down into the nucleus of the cell, where the intelligence of our entire physiology is contained within our chromosomes. So here a chromosome is going to unwind, and you're going to see the actual DNA that contains the codes for everything that our body does. This is like the software that runs our physiology. Genes are the codes for every protein that our bodies make, including all the signaling molecules that run our physiology, such as our neurotransmitters that run our nervous system, our hormones that run our endocrine system, and our cytokines that run our immune system. So imagine, for instance, that these are cells in your pancreas making insulin. This is happening in 1 million cells, let's say, all producing huge amounts of insulin to keep your blood sugars in proper balance. Again, your insulin is a hormone, which is a protein. So we see that throughout our physiology, we have receptors specifically designed to bind with CBD, and CBD has its effect on the nucleus of our cells where proteins are being made. So which proteins are being made from the influence of CBD? CBD modulates the transcriptions of over 1,100 genes that make the signaling molecules that naturally reduce inflammation in our central nervous system and throughout our immune system, restoring homeostasis to both our immune and to our central nervous systems. So as you can see on the left side of the slide, CBD upregulates the genes that create anti-inflammatory biochemicals for our immune system and upregulates the GABA system in our central nervous system, which brings calmness to our central nervous system. And on the right side of the slide, we can see that CBD downregulates the genes that create the inflammatory biochemicals in our immune system, and also downregulates the glutamate system in our central nervous system, which causes overexcitation. So now, let's go back to the model of our physiology and see how CBD affects it. We go back to our one star that's out of whack, and now we introduce CBD, and voila! We see a cascade going through all the points of balance in our system, and the mobile comes back to homeostasis, to its original, stable, beautiful balance. Now, our physiological systems are far more complex than the simple mobile that I've been showing you here with only 12 stars. For instance, our immune system has 350 different signaling molecules on it. So it's an enormous mobile, which also explains why there's so many unintended drug interactions. Because if you affect any one of those little stars, it's going to shift all 350 of those other stars. And who could possibly figure that out? So in fact, here's what our immune system actually looks like. And of course, when you introduce CBD to our amazingly complex physiology, in the immune system, the cascade of homeostasis trickles down through all 350 of those stars. It's a beautiful thing. Bottom line, CBD causes a cascade of homeostasis through our entire central nervous system and our entire immune system. So why is this happening? Because as I mentioned before, we have receptors in our physiology for CBD. This is called the endocannabinoid system. Back in medical school, we didn't even know about the endocannabinoid system. It was only discovered in the 1990s by Dr. Raphael Mechoulam from the Hebrew University in Israel, where an amazing amount of incredible biomedical technology and innovations are coming from that tiny little country. So the endocannabinoid system is a network of cells throughout our body that have receptors for CBD. In fact, there are more receptors for CBD in our body than any other kind of receptor. So the endocannabinoid system is truly the largest network of its kind throughout our entire physiology. Among other things, Dr. Mechoulam also discovered that we make our own cannabinoids in our body. This is anandamide and 2-AG. Anandamide is something that we create when we're meditating, hence it's called the bliss molecule. And 2-AG, as well as anandamide, are released in mother's milk when a child is breastfeeding. So no wonder that child is so calm and happy when they're breastfeeding. Those two compounds are also associated with a runner's high. You know, that point when you're running and suddenly you're in bliss, you kind of break through the wall and now you just feel wonderful? Those two are natural cannabinoids that our own bodies make and bind to our CBD receptors. So here we have our CBD receptors in our central nervous system and in our cardiovascular system, where immune cells are constantly circulating. Of course, in our bone marrow, where the cells are actually manufactured. And of course, in our immune organs. Our major immune organs are the intestines, the spleen, and the bladder. And last but not least, the lymph system. So our bodies are filled with CBD receptors. So what? Now you know the story. Why is this important? Why does this matter? Why is this important to you or me? Or if you're interested in the business of distributing CBD, why is this important to humanity? If you live in urban America or urban anywhere in the world, you are inflamed. Your central nervous system is inflamed, as well as your immune system is inflamed, and nobody is exempt because our physiological systems are under assault. Assault from environmental toxins such as herbicides, insecticides, and heavy metals, chronic biological infections such as bacteria, viruses, fungus, and molds, and last but not least, our inflammatory diets, which are very poor, usually way too much sugar, which causes leaky gut, an inflamed gut that allows certain bacterial infestations to occur that gets into our blood, into our systems. So, what kind of symptoms, what kind of stress do all these things cause to us? If your immune system is inflamed, You might be suffering from autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, inflamed bowel disease, lupus and thyroid, or fibromyalgia, or even MS, and your skin, psoriasis and eczema, and all sorts of other chronic infections. Do you realize many of these things didn't even exist 100 or 150 years ago? Incidence of these kind of diseases is growing throughout the last century because of the environmental load of toxins that we are now absorbing into our systems. Now let's take a look at your central nervous system. If it is inflamed, what kind of things might you be suffering from? Brain fog, migraines, epilepsy, anxiety and PTSD, ADD, ADHD, autism, and insomnia. Again, 100 or 150 years ago, these kind of symptoms, these kind of diseases were really rare. And over the last 150 years, because of the insult, the ongoing insult to our systems, these kind of things are more and more prevalent with every single year. So, if you are suffering from any of these conditions, any of these symptoms, CBD might provide you with tremendous healing, tremendous relief, right through your own natural endocannabinoid system that brings homeostasis, both to your immune system and to your central nervous system. So in conclusion, what have we learned from this conversation? That health is achieved through physiological homeostasis, right through our natural endocannabinoid systems. And therefore, CBD is an indispensable catalyst for optimal health.
Throughout history, a humble yet vitally important plant has contributed to the health and prosperity of civilizations both ancient and new. From the Egyptians to the Chinese, the Romans and the Greeks, from the Vikings of Northern Europe to societies in Africa and all over the globe, from colonial times to the Industrial Revolution, and to modern-day United States, this amazing plant has revolutionized economies, used in textiles, paper, housing, agriculture, making roads, foods, medicines, and fuel. It is said that oil derived from this plant was used for holy anointings. While legend has it this plant grew in southern Mesopotamia, in the most famous garden of all, described in religious texts that go back thousands of years, and yet, for the last 75 years and more, your access to this plant's remarkable health and prosperity benefits have been blocked. Some say willfully kept from you, for the people who need it the most, and from a planet that strains to keep its balance. At a time when millions struggle financially, barely getting by, and millions more suffer with pain. In a world where economies teeter on the edge of collapse, where the global ecosystem wobbles like a top spinning out of control, betrayed by those who seek to control what you think, what you believe, what you can ingest, and how far you go in life. We now live in a world desperate for the plant that has been wrongfully taken from you. An amazing plant that nourishes the body, enriches the earth, and as you're about to discover, provides you with the ability to make a difference for your family, your community, and for generations yet to come. Be prepared to witness a story of rebirth, of cultures and economies, of your life, and the life of our precious planet Earth. It's now your time to be part of the solution and learn more about the Canaway Hemp lifestyle.